Polish Atrocities against the German Minority in Poland. This document is a 1940 report published by the German Foreign Office, which alleges a systematic campaign of atrocities committed by Polish authorities and civilians against the German minority in Poland. The report asserts that this campaign, culminating in the events of September 1939, resulted in over 58,000 members of the German minority being killed or reported missing. The central argument posits that these acts were not random outbursts of violence, but the result of a long-standing, state-sanctioned policy of extermination, fueled by years of anti-German propaganda from the Polish government, press, and clergy. A significant factor identified as escalating the violence is the guarantee of assistance extended to Poland by Great Britain. The report frames this guarantee as a blank check that emboldened Poland to abandon any moderation towards Germany and the German minority, thereby directly contributing to the alleged massacres. The atrocities described are characterized by extreme brutality, including premeditated mass murders, gruesome mutilations, and the torture of men, women, children, and the elderly. A major focus is placed on the forced death marches of interned Germans into the Polish interior, where thousands are said to have perished from exhaustion, starvation, and summary executions. The report claims its findings are based on irrefutable documentary evidence, including records from German special courts, files from special police commissions, and detailed reports from medico-legal experts who conducted autopsies on the victims. The document presents the German-Polish Agreement of January 26, 1934, as a sincere German effort to establish lasting peace. However, it argues that this effort was undermined by definite forces abroad and extremist Polish societies who fanned the ever-glowing fires of propaganda in Poland, directed against Germany and everything German. After the death of Marshal Pilsudski, the report contends that Poland completely dropped its conciliatory stance, leading to an aggressive campaign for the annexation of German territory and a systematic policy to exterminate everything of German origin. The British guarantee provided Poland with the role of a political battering ram in an encirclement policy against the Reich. This blank check from Great Britain was a direct signal for the murder and bestial butchery of German people. Without this backing, the report asserts Poland would never have rejected Germany's unique offer for compromise made on April 28, 1939, nor would it have initiated its policy of extermination of the German minority. Prior to the outbreak of war, the report details a multifaceted campaign of oppression against the German minority, designed to destroy their economic, cultural, and social existence. By mid-1939, 1.4 million Germans had emigrated from Posen, West Prussia, and Upper Silesia due to pressure from Polish officials. German settlers lost a total of 1,263,288 acres of land. Of this, 265,288 acres were lost due to one-sided agrarian reform laws, and 998,000 acres were lost due to cancellation and liquidation. Thousands of German enterprises were systematically destroyed through boycotts, cancellation of orders, confiscation, withdrawal of concessions, and discriminatory taxes. Innumerable German workmen and employees were subjected to mass dismissals based on political race discrimination. The use of the German language was restricted in public. German church services were disturbed, and German newspapers were seized. The number of public German minority schools was drastically reduced from 657 in 1925 to only 185 by the start of the 1938/1939 school year. Germans were attacked in their homes and on their farms, with acts of violence increasing to an unimaginable degree from May 1939 onwards. The report argues that the massacres of September 1939 were not spontaneous, but were a pre-planned, centrally organized operation sanctioned and executed by Polish state and civil institutions. Evidence is presented to support the claim of a premeditated campaign. A poisoned atmosphere was allegedly created by an anti-German press, radio, and pulpit propaganda campaign, culminating in a political psychosis that permitted any Pole to commit violence against Germans without restraint. The report specifically implicates Canon Shears of Bromberg for inciting inhabitants to resist the Germans to the last drop of blood and to destroy everything German. The Warsaw government is said to have repeatedly broadcast Command Number 59 on September 1st, 1939, which is presented as a coded signal to initiate action against the German minority. The existence of pre-prepared warrants of arrest is cited as proof of long-term planning. These warrants were color-coded: red for arrest and house search, pink for internment, particularly for German nationals, yellow for evacuation to Central or East Poland. The report notes that in practice, all categories were treated with the same severity. Entries of suspicious in the military passports of minority Germans were considered an order for Polish authorities to have the holders shot. A systematic procedure for the attacks is described. Minority Germans were arrested based on the prepared lists and taken to police stations, where they were often beaten and interrogated to force confessions of espionage. During house searches for weapons, Polish soldiers or civilians would allegedly plant evidence, such as secretly placing a cartridge on a cupboard or concealing a hand grenade to justify murder. In towns, the sudden explosion of a shot was often used as a signal, followed by cries of, "The Germans have started shooting!" This accusation, which the report claims was always baseless, served as the pretext for indiscriminate attacks. Victims were shot, beaten to death, or stabbed. The perpetrators included Polish soldiers, police, gendarmes, and armed civilians from organizations like the West Marches Society, Rifle Corps, railwaymen, and schoolboys. The report claims broad participation across Polish society. Catholic priests are accused of inciting hatred, with the report noting that the distinction of creed, Protestant German, Catholic Pole, became an instrument and tool of political murder. Fanatical Polish women are described as acting as informers, pointing out German homes to soldiers and demanding their murder. The laundrywoman Maria Goralska of Bromberg is quoted as boasting she had betrayed many Germans, while another, Sophie Bednarczyk, shouted, "All Germans must be slaughtered. The accursed Hitler pigs must be castrated." Adolescents aged 17 to 20 and even younger schoolboys are described as taking part, armed with weapons distributed by local police or magistrates. The document provides extensive detail on the number of victims, the demographic scope of the violence, and the extreme brutality of the acts committed. As of February 1st, 1940, the report claims 12,857 identified dead bodies and over 45,000 missing persons, all presumed dead, for a total exceeding 58,000. Victims ranged from a 2.5-month-old infant, Gisela Rosenau, to an 86-year-old man, Peter Rienast. Victims included every class and profession, such as peasants, teachers, clergymen, doctors, and factory owners. Men, women, children, the elderly, invalids, and cripples were all targeted. Protestant clergy and churches were specifically singled out for destruction. The report, particularly its medico-legal section, emphasizes the gruesome and sadistic nature of the killings. Uniform types of injuries were observed across different localities, suggesting a common method. These included mutilations, eyes gouged out, tongues torn out, noses and ears cut off, teeth smashed, fingers and feet hacked off, abdomen slit open, and castration. head injuries, skulls crushed with rifle butts, brains oozing out, and shots fired straight down into the head. Methods of killing. Victims were shot, often in the neck, tortured to death, beaten, stabbed, and in some cases, allegedly buried alive after being forced to dig their own graves. Post-mortem desecration. Dead horses or dogs were thrown on mutilated German bodies. In some cases, corpses were put on view for money. The persecutions were most intense in areas with a high percentage of German population, such as Posen, the Vistula lowlands, and the Bromberg district. Bromberg Blood Sunday, September 3, 1939, repeatedly cited as the climax of the atrocities. Mass graves. Numerous mass graves were discovered, including Jesuiter C, 39 bodies, Klein Bartelsee, 53 bodies, Slonsk, 58 bodies, Tarnowa, north of Turek, 104 bodies, the largest single grave found. Eichdorf, presented as an example of a German settlement where whole families were exterminated. A significant portion of the report is dedicated to the forced marches of thousands of interned Germans from western regions into the interior of Poland, with Bereza Kartuska named as a primary destination. Prisoners were forced to march 20 to 30 miles per day, tied together in twos, often barefoot or in slippers. They suffered from extreme hunger and thirst, resorting to eating swedes from fields and drinking from dirty puddles or petrol cans. Guards are described as brutal, cursing the prisoners and beating them with rifle butts, whips, and crops. Polish officers are said to have personally shot prisoners and mishandled women. There were strict orders to shoot anyone who lagged behind. Hundreds were reportedly shot or struck down dead along the roads. The report highlights the indiscriminate cruelty shown to all, regardless of age or physical condition. War invalids with artificial limbs were forced to march until they collapsed and were then shot. The Schmolke family, a war invalid with 2 artificial limbs, his wife, his 15-year-old daughter, and his 18-month-old son, were all shot when their strength gave way. Prisoners were subjected to drills, such as being forced to kneel for an hour, with those collapsing being beaten to death. In other instances, victims were lined up for execution, only to have the process repeated multiple times before they were finally killed. The document asserts that its conclusions are based on a comprehensive and official investigation. The primary sources of information are listed as the penal records of the Special Courts of Justice in Bromberg and Posen, the investigation files of the Special Police Commissions, the testimony of medico-legal experts of the Health Inspection Department of the Military High Command, the original records of the Military Commission for the Investigation of Breaches of International Law, personal accounts from survivors, and copious photographic material. The report includes a summary of findings from the autopsies of approximately 250 victims, which it notes is a small fraction of the total. Key conclusions were: the overwhelming majority of cases showed the use of military weapons, rifles, pistols, hand grenades, proving the involvement of the Polish army. Makeshift weapons were the exception. The nature of the wounds, the indiscriminate targeting of civilians, including infants and the elderly, and the methods of killing, drowning, bayoneting, torture, ruled out the possibility of formal military executions. The findings confirmed sadistic tendencies, including the deliberate protraction of death agonies, stabs to the eyes, and shots aimed at the buttocks of dying victims. Autopsies confirm the murder of victims of all ages, including children as young as 4 months and women in the last stages of pregnancy.